So we will go ahead and get started. I heard from a lot of folks about our update that we sent, and this is really just going to be going into detail on that, really those updates, just so that we're all on the same page about what's going on and where we're at. And then we'll dig into some ways that some of our members, we are eager to work together on some of these projects, and so we'll get into that as well. Let me share my screen. Mac, do you want to, I'll have you lead in terms of, do you have the agenda up? I'm also sharing it right now too.
Yeah, I've got the agenda.
Great.
So, all right. Well, I roll call. So Lucy, do the roll call. Do you do a roll call, or do you just want me to call out people as they I see them on the screen? I can't hear anything. Anybody else hear me?
I can hear you. It sounds like they froze there.
Okay.
Looks like they're froze.
For the record, I'm here.
I get you. All right. And Kelly's here.
Here.
And Monique.
Present.
And I see Mike just joined us.
Yes.
And all those people in the conference room are frozen. Aaron Cummings.
Yep, I'm here.
All right. Lori Upright.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm here.
Haley Snyder.
Here.
All right. Those are the folks that I can see. I guess we'll wait for our colleagues here for a minute. So I was doing a live stream interview last night, just as a time filler here. And we had a few issues, freezing and stuff, but the big one was at the very end when my computer battery died. And you might think that that would end the live stream, but no, the live stream continued without me for like 20 minutes until I found a way to get back in and turn it off. So that was a little embarrassing. So technology is great when you're mastering it and humbling when you screw up.
No kidding. I like to tell people that my smartphone has an idiot for an owner.
All right. Can you guys
All
hear
right.
us?
We can now.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
And so we went through the folks that were here.
Okay, great.
Or,
and we
go
can
ahead and I can't necessarily see everybody's face very well because you're kind of small. So
and
I
we'll
see
go
Paul.
through it. Yep, Dr. Watson is here. Tina from Dispatch. Tommy Miller, Commissioner. He's one of the new commissioners who will be joining us.
Welcome.
Brent Phelan from GIS. Paul Agnetuck.
Hey, Paul.
And Mike is also here in the room, as
Mike.
well as.
Oh,
And
cool.
it looks Kathy Zenda Wilson is also joining us right now on Zoom.
All right. All right. There's Kathy. Hey, Kathy.
Hello, everyone.
All right. And so moving to the second item on the agenda, and I guess I turn it right back to you, Lucy, to go over the update that you sent out last week.
Absolutely. So we were excited to send out an update on the request for proposal that the county put together for broadband access. As we mentioned last time, we received 5 responses to those. I can now tell you who those were. The 3, as we mentioned in the emailed update that we sent you, that we are moving forward with support of their projects are acd.net. Which is a company out of Lansing. I'm going to pull up the maps while I talk about them, but we can also go back and take a look at these as well. But this is ACD's project area. One thing I'll say about the ACD project is that they are applying for Robin grant funds. Today is the deadline for the Robin grant. And this is a project that they have applied for. I'm going to come back to that, but I'll get through the other respondents to the RFP. The other one that we are supporting is Comcast, and this shows the Comcast map that they're looking at. Comcast is also applying for Robin, and we have supported that project application. And then the other project that we are supporting is MEC. MEC is, we've been talking with MEC quite a bit because they are an RDOF recipient, and they are covering through the RDOF funds that they received, actually not what's on this map, but in the southwest side of the county, they are covering that area with RDOF funds. And so this is their projected area that they would like to cover with grant dollars. They've decided to wait until BEAD in order, the next round of grant funding through the NTIA, which is a larger sum of money. And so they will be applying for that for this project that you can see on the screen. The other two proposals that we received, one was from 123.net. That's a pretty popular internet service provider that has been responding to requests for proposals. Their map looked like it overlapped almost entirely with ACD's, and we decided not to follow the path of that internet service provider. And then the other one was also Lit Communities, which was looking to serve the entire county with a model that was very ambitious. We talked with a couple of other counties, and there were concerns about Lit Communities, and ultimately is for, especially for the purposes of grant dollars, which we knew is specifically for unserved and underserved areas. We just simply decided not to support that project for the grant dollars. That's ultimately what we're focusing on, is thinking about these grant processes and which projects are going to serve these unserved areas of the county for Robin and for BEAD. So the two that have applied for Robin, which as I mentioned is due today, are acd.net. That's this one here. One thing I'll share about this project and acd.net, which as I mentioned is out of Lansing, they actually have a project that they're also applying for Robin grants that's up in Eaton County, directly connected to this area. And so they already have, in addition to already having some fiber that's linked into the corner, that's where they plan to expand. They worked with Eaton County. Actually, Eaton County is offering $1.8 million to match funds for this Robin grant for Eaton County. And their leadership decided that they wanted to move forward also with Calhoun's project for the Robin application, because they think that they have a lot greater chance of receiving those funds because the two projects do connect. And so that felt good to us as well. And so we sent support letters from us, from Calhoun County, as well as from City of Albion. So thanks to Haley, who really responded quickly on that. And so we did send support letters for this project as well. One of the things is that, and I will add Ziggy, apologies for not noticing this. One of the things that ACD really liked about as they were reviewing the unserved and underserved maps, which is something that the My High office offered. They had in their grant portal, they have a map that you can look at to see which are unserved and underserved areas. And what they found was that there are corners of Albion, City of Albion, that were unserved. And so they were excited about the opportunity to expand into the City of Albion as well. So that's why, you know, we reached out to City of Albion for a letter of support as well. So that's that project. And then the other project, as I mentioned, that is applying for the Robin funds is Comcast. I'm just trying to get that part of my screen. I can scooch it down. Come on, come on. My Zoom is in the way. Oops. Oops, here we go. And so then the other one was Comcast in this case. In both cases, they didn't ask for matching funds. With Comcast map, of course, it's much more widespread. Both of these internet service providers were also going out and asking for letter support also on their own And we know that Comcast was doing that as well. And so we've been working with Comcast on this, and we're supporting this as well. Kelly, is there anything else that you want to add about this process with the RFP and Robin?
Yeah, so yeah, it's really helpful to see the maps. One thing I wanted to mention about, I guess I'll start with Comcast, is this is about, what is it, 6,000 addresses? They claim that this really does capture or provide service to the unserved, the majority, maybe they said, the majority of the unserved addresses in the county. You can see none of the greater Battle Creek area is included because primarily that area is already served. There are some pockets down in the southwest and kind of this diagonal, if you start southwest and go up to the right diagonal, that are not served currently, but they're in process of being served by MEC, which is the one who received the rural development funds. And they, I want to say in the next year or two, will have completed those. So I think that's why Comcast also kind of carved that out of their plan. But what we just heard from Lucy, the MEC proposal, because of kind of their belief and what we've been hearing about the potential for Robin grants to maybe be awarded to the larger providers and a smaller number of big projects, they're waiting for Robin. So if Comcast obviously wins the Robin grant, that might delete the need, or they might choose to duplicate, but the Comcast one would be huge for our county. We can talk about affordability later, and Comcast does have, you know, quite a few discount programs, but this would at least make a huge dent in the gap of unserved addresses in the county. So I wanted to mention that, and that the County Board of Commissioners appropriated out of our American Rescue Plan Act fund $1 million just so that we can set that aside, and if and when needed for any of these grant processes, could potentially offer that up as a local match. But that's not being proposed to either of these providers that are applying for the Robin grant. So this would all happen hypothetically without a local match, which would be amazing if any of this could get done. And we have communicated to all of the providers that submitted proposals through our RFP process. So they all are aware of the information that we're sharing with you today.
Are you here? Go ahead, ma'am.
I'll be quick because a lot of staff just came down in the staff area because it's kind of loud, but I can't recall, and maybe we did talk about this in terms of the quality that Comcast is planning on doing. It would provide, you know, the broadest band, like they would still be able to provide gigabyte speeds into these more remote areas. Or would that be, you know, fiber far short of that? I'm just curious about that.
We can pull that information from the RFP response. I do believe that it's fiber to the premise, just because that is kind of the expectation for those projects, but we can pull exact. I believe they did have up to gigabit speed though.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. I couldn't remember whether we covered that or whether it covered that. Thank you.
They said fiber to the premise.
Yep. Thanks, Siggy.
The minimum for Robin was 100 symmetrical.
Yeah. Any questions about this process? We're definitely, I mean, it's been a busy week as we were just trying to figure out who was applying and things like that. Any questions about this process?
I have a question. Kelly was sharing that Comcast said that they were not going to provide to the city of Battle Creek. So who will cover that?
Yeah. Well, so what we don't have here, and it might be helpful at some point to put together the map of what's already offered as a service. And then these are the gaps. So most of the white area on this map on Comcast Comcast attachment B, they already provide service too. Now it's cable and internet, so it's not necessarily broadband fiber, but this was their attempt to fill in the gaps for where they don't already provide service. So most of the greater Battle Creek area already has Comcast as an option. In Emmett Township, some of the surrounding townships of Battle Creek already have Comcast.
Yeah, these maps are specifically where they're planning on, expanding to, ideally with grant funds, which are unserved and underserved homes. In general, and granted, we could debate this, but in general, the city of Battle Creek is considered served because they have the speeds that are at the federal thresholds of what is served. And so that's why in general, with these grant applications, we aren't seeing City of Battle Creek included because they can't receive funds to cover that. And so ultimately, it's an interesting problem because we know that the connections in the city are more cable, like Kelly mentioned. They're not necessarily fiber to the premise, which is an ideal technology that we would like to see. And that is the technology that we're seeing with these grant applications. So this is to bring very reliable fiber to unserved areas, which is a good thing. That's not to say, though, that we don't still have, questions about the city of Battle Creek and how we ensure that the reliable access is in the city.
Lucy and
Yeah.
Lynn, do we know through the MyHigh office when they might think that we'll hear who gets the awards for the Robin grant? Do we have a timeline for that? Do you guys know?
I'll pull it up.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, because I think that timeline is on the website, so we'll just grab it real quick.
I just, we are all talked about how the irony of after all this that we might end up with Comcast service. Since seeing them is probably a problem. And so I'm always skeptical of anything Comcast says to some degree, but they do cover a lot of area and it is a good proposal. One of the things that just occurred to me is when we started this, I talked to somebody in Ceresco in that area who said that there was nothing there. Now, this map would indicate, most of the white areas is covered, that it is. That's been 2 years ago, so maybe things have changed, but it just now occurred to me because I know the guy and he lives in sort of a newish suburb or not subdivision in that area. So I don't know if we can verify all that stuff too.
And definitely that's part of even the FCC challenge process. One of our commissioners who lives in Emmett, he took a look at the FCC maps and said that he was served, and he's feels very strongly he's not served. And so, that is part of the process, is really checking on these places. And definitely the FCC challenge area is an important part of that process.
So maybe we can, for next time we're in the interim, have Brent, who's here, right? Take these maps and put them together like a puzzle. So we can have, RDOF, which is online, right? We can have what we consider to be the served areas in one color. And then we can have these proposed expansion projects called out too, so that you can see how the puzzle fits together and what gaps still might exist even after all of this.
Definitely. Yeah, those maps are just more and more readily available through this process, because even related to the Robin grant process, they had the RDOF funds on that map. So we're definitely more and more able to see these things together, which was kind of a tricky part of the process early on, was because not all of this data was in one place and not all the data was super reliable. But now, all these groups are kind of digging in more and more. Ziggy, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that the BEAD process allows for project areas to be defined as low as one location. So that means that as long as it's designated as eligible because it was challenged, or you could show that that it's unserved or perhaps underserved, and there's enough funds to cover that, then if it's in a Comcast areas, it would be very cost effective for them to reach that, which would probably make them win that location anyway.
Yeah, I'm really interested in the BEAD process. I think that there's a lot of opportunity with BEAD, especially because governments can apply. But also just because it's a larger pool of money to pull from. My high is definitely hoping that after identifying certain, areas that Robin will take care of, that the BEAD funds are able to do more creative things, potentially, finding solution in the areas that we know we need help. And so we definitely have time for that, but not much time, but to think through like what are our goals? How do we want to make sure that we're using BEAD in a way that serves Calhoun? Definitely. I think that's the majority of the RFP update that I wanted to give. The date for Robin being today, that's a really big it's a step. It's a big step for us. I'm not finding the
I'm
timeline,
not either.
but once we find it, we will send it out. It's probably in this 20-page, 23-page document that I can't look through fast enough. So, but we will definitely get that information out.
Yeah, Lucy and Mac, since we do have our consultant here, Ziggy from CTC, could we maybe just get his quick thoughts on these proposals that are moving forward?
Yes. Put together a memo. It's a really in many ways an elaboration and justification of the initial comments I had. And by far the best proposal was Comcast's lowest per pass, not lowest, but fairly low per passing cost. 53% they are willing to put in of their own funds. That was the highest amount of any of them. And as you know, they also are by far the best option in terms of low cost programs, even if ACP should run out of funds. With the others, there aren't too many options if ACP runs out of funds. But with Comcast, you've got two. Internet Essentials at $10 and Internet Essential Plus at $30. So, and they proposed, these are greenfield builds, so they proposed fiber to the premise, which should also help a lot with performance issues and the customer service aspects of this. The other MEC, they could be a good partner as well, but at 25%, I'm not entirely certain how competitive they could be, but they are certainly a good second option. I had some questions about ACD net, and I felt that there were some details that were missing in the proposal document I got. They said that they would contribute something like 15% or something, I believe, which is very, very low. So I had actually said if they are willing to contribute more, then they could be a partner as well, which I guess they did. So this is completely in line with my analysis. I also said to skip lit communities. And 123.net, they have no operational experience at all. That's a very risky bet.
Thank you, Ziggy. That's helpful. And, we also heard through the grapevine that there were also other ISPs applying for Robin. Some of the townships received franchise agreements from internet service providers, which was the way that they were looking to gain support from townships. That was in general, though, we would talk, it was Sheridan Township. We talked in depth with Sheridan Township, and even talked about some of these plans and just trying to understand why franchise agreements were being sent. But ultimately, we feel strongly, and we also think through the signal of the RFP and the responses that we received, that these projects specifically are the ones that we are, have a high chance of succeeding. And so we're eager to see what'll happen. It's likely that MyHigh and Robin won't fund 2 projects in the same county, right? Because that kind of goes against exactly what they're trying to do. But so we'll see what happens. We'll really just see what happens, and we'll definitely make sure to communicate outcomes to you all. All right. I think that's it, Mac, on RFP review.
All right, so then the next thing is member updates. And that's just updates from you all.
First, before we get there, I did want to talk about member engagement. Sorry, Mac.
That's okay.
Just
I think I'm
related-
looking at the wrong agenda. You got an
yeah.
updated agenda.
You have V1, this is V2. But I did just want to share some thoughts real quick that we will be reaching out to all of you related to the ACP plan that we talked about last meeting. But also, you know, thinking about BEAD and thinking about how we can find creative solutions for broadband in Calhoun. I think we need to start having one-on-one conversations with some of these institutions. And so, you know, the ISD, I think Lori is with us today. You know, all of you, we want to talk more about the broadband projects that you have going on, and then how can we start thinking about expanding some of these projects into the community to increase the number of folks who have, you know, fiber to the premise. So that's a big aspect of this. And then also statistics, and along the lines of those conversations is thinking about the statistics that could help us with grant applications for BEAD. And so if you have statistics related to connectivity, for instance, I'm not sure if Sonia is on. I feel like I'm a little out of sorts because of how the meeting went in the beginning, but you know, Sonia, I'm thinking about especially, you know, healthcare and telehealth statistics and the sorts of statistics that lend themselves to the conversation of why the greater connectivity in Calhoun County is so important will help us have stronger grant applications. And those are things that we can leverage. I would love to see us applying for grants, not just related to expansion, but also related to digital navigators that are helping to bridge, you know, some of the digital literacy issues in our community. That's something that this task force has identified in the past as being in tandem with these issues. So that's certainly part of it. But even digital navigator programs often are helping to connect people who are eligible for the Affordable Connectivity Plan, getting them connected so that they receive those benefits through their internet service provider. So there's a lot of potential here, and I want to make sure that we're having conversations with your organizations about the roles that we can all play in order to take active role in solutions. And a lot of you have initiatives going on with broadband, and so it's just tapping into those, making sure we're aware so that we can also help connect dots if they come up. Any questions or comments on that? Kelly, anything you wanted to add?
I did. I touched on this at our last meeting that, you know, we really appreciate having the task force sort of listen to our updates for the last, I don't know, has it been a year? Has it been more than a year? And essentially a lot of work has happened behind the scenes with the county adding our new position for Lynn, you know, and just supporting the task force and helping us through the process of getting our consulting report and selecting partners to support. So I think, you know, we're at that point where I would consider a next step kind of creating an inventory of community support resources. And so literally like I'll call it a spreadsheet because I'm an accountant by trade that lists the key, and we call a lot of you anchor organizations, right? Large institutions, large employers that have a big audience, industry specific, that needs internet to interact with you. And so listing each of you and then being able to describe, you know, what your resources and or capabilities to bring to the table. So whether it's, you know, some sort of different grant funding that maybe you're eligible for that could help with either education, digital literacy, or even, you know, expanding broadband, maybe specifically to your customers, clients, students, patients. And then, you know, just trying to have sort of that inventory so that when we do move forward to the big, you know, billions of dollars of grant applications, assuming the solution's not going to happen with the Robin grant, like that's, a fantasy, but if we get a piece of that, we would be really lucky. So moving forward, how can we, because these grant applications happen pretty quickly. So how can we be best positioned to know what you could bring to the table as a partner? So that when we, try to work with the providers, we're not just kind of saying, I don't know if we can pull together some local match. I don't know. It's pretty easy to get letters of support. Obviously, you've all done a good job there, but I think individually, we'd like to come meet with you and talk more in detail. And maybe it's not you, but your designee about, what kind of resources can we actually list that you could commit to? What kind of statistics, what kind of stories could we actually follow up with and have kind of in a database that we can put together when it comes to, because even if we get these projects, there's going to need to be a lot of community conversations, a lot of, I guess, marketing communication. So we're at that point now where we've got a few months, we've got some time, but we need to really get into the individual member meetings of the task force and just kind of create that inventory of, okay, we could get from KCC help with the ACP, the Affordable Care Act, the Affordable Connectivity Program. How many of your students qualify for Pell Grants, and how could you get messages to them easily, specifically to target that group? Or, from the hospital, do you have community dollars to deploy that you might be able to offer a certain amount as local match? So that's the kind of more direct information that we don't expect to come out in these task force meetings. We really have to come talk with you, meet with you, and understand based on how you can fit that into your mission, but also as broader community members, how can we describe the level of our community support?
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. And on statistics, even understanding, and I think we talked a couple meetings ago about health outcomes, but how vital it is for your constituent success to have access, whether it's in health outcomes or educational outcomes or workforce development. Where can we actually demonstrate that, what kind of difference that it makes?
Speaking on behalf of Albion College, I want to apologize. This is my first task force meeting, but we're at that point where we are, hopefully some weeks away from announcing our new president. And the big part of joining today was to make sure that I have all of this information to bring them up to speed. We do have, we're blessed with Haley Snyder. I heard her name mentioned earlier in the meeting, who keeps us informed, but would welcome that on-campus meeting where we could bring together the players on campus, not just from the economic development side, but also from the academic side, as we talk about needs and resources. So would be more than willing and look forward to the opportunity to coordinate that meeting on behalf of Albion College.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Albion College always has been having conversations about fiber and that connection to Albion, the city of Albion. And so I definitely look forward to having that conversation.
Yes.
Any other comments about that? I think we've kind of been saying that, but we just wanted to reiterate that again this meeting, just in terms of, we're here as resources, but also we'll be reaching out to you as well in terms of other ways we can engage.
Thank you. I bet we don't have, do we have citizens for citizens time?
We don't. We don't have any citizens joining today. Just so everyone knows, these meetings are available to the public. And so the details for that are on our website, which is calhouncountymI.gov/broadband. So anybody, if you ever hear of someone who wants to join.
Lucy, would this be the time to update the group on the broadband amendment bill?
Yeah, absolutely. I think sorry, Mac, I kind of skipped over on member updates, but that could be absolutely, Mike, go ahead.
Sure. So met with a legislator today and talked with another lobbyist about what's going on, and we did some drafting to try and improve the current law in Michigan, which, as I think most of you know, we've had past discussions. Mark, this might be interesting for you to hear. The law in Michigan currently is that none of this federal money, almost $2 billion worth, which is some of it's here and some of it's on its way, none of it is available to Michigan government, local government, universities, etc. So we've been working with some partners to try and get that fixed. And I believe a bill will be coming out of the Legislative Service Bureau in the next day or two. We kind of were hoping it would have been here by now, but it's not. But and we think we know what will be in it, and it should be good news for us in fixing that problem, so that the county, in this case, will be eligible to apply for some of that grant money in its own right. Which, even if it partners, change, with Comcast or whoever, it changes the dynamic where you are able to, walk into the room as a co-eligible entity, as opposed to somebody who can't get the money on their own. They've got to have a partner. So anyway, that's what we're hoping to see in the next day or two.
Mike, can you say which statute that would be amending? Or no?
Well, what I worked on was a revision to 224.
Okay.
But what the particular representative will do with it, and then what Legislative Service Bureau does with it, which is even more interesting, we just have to wait and see.
Okay, thank you.
And for those who weren't aware, this was something that we identified way back at the beginning of our retention with the county, and at the county's direction, principally Kelly and company, we got launched on doing this and finding some partners to join us. And I'm pretty excited actually about getting this rolling this quickly with this new legislature. So kudos to Kelly and company.
Thank you. Just to make sure we don't pass over any member updates, or even just thoughts or responses based on what you've heard or what you're hearing around your colleagues. Anything at all? Okay. I think that's it. Is it not, Lucy?
I think so.
You don't have another version of the agenda?
I don't.
Can I add one more last breaking point that I just read out of Washington?
Sure.
There's been some hue and cry about the ACP, which is the federal program, and I forget how many tens of millions of dollars it involves, but it provides low-income assistance for internet connections. And I think the sum right now is about $30 a month. There are issues with it, but there's an awful lot of folks who are utilizing it, and the hope is that more will get on the system to help them pay the cost of connecting. Anyway, so I just saw this morning that there is bipartisan support for extending that fund, which is due to run out in about a year. So and of course, that and a whole bunch of other things, we'll see if it happens, but it was a positive report and analysis on the subject. And I know it's been a big deal for this group.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest critiques of the program, is just that there's an end in sight. If in the next year funds run out, how are we really looking at affordability in a sustainable manner? So, that's good news if the program's extended, especially as we try to increase the take rate essentially of Calhoun County residents who are eligible. I used statistics last time we met that I want to say there's something like 60% of eligible households for ACP are not participating. And so the goal is to close that gap. It would be a shame to close that gap and then have the program run out. So good to hear that. We'll keep you updated on that as well.
I think to that end, though, just to remind this group that is one of the next steps, right? Lucy and Lynn we're working on how to provide resources to all of you to promote that and increase how many residents are enrolled in Calhoun County. It's kind of a campaign that we've got a plan for, but needs to happen next. And so that definitely strengthens the message to say, well, you know, we knew it was going to be in place for this year and next year, but if it's even extended longer, you know, to be honest, in our county, because we don't have a lot of residents that have more than one option, and sometimes that option isn't relatively inexpensive. If you qualify, this program definitely helps ease that issue that we have with lack of competition in Calhoun County. So yeah, that's good to know. Appreciate that.
Yeah, that's a good point, Kelly, related to competition. Without much competition, these are the options folks have, and these ISPs, Comcast is one of them, participates in ACP, and so yeah, Lynn and I are actually have a meeting starting this week with WIC and VA also on this scheduled, and then we're going to start, I'm hoping that with WIC, just because it is a county office, so it's easy for us to get that one scheduled, we'll really have an idea of how we want to leverage some of the toolkit items in a way that's helpful and also branded for Calhoun. So that's the plan, and then we will be reaching out to all of you to set up those meetings. That's an education campaign, you know, and really diving into how do we get the information about how to enroll in front of folks who are eligible. So that's part of it. I anticipate that we'll roll that into conversations that we'll bring Kelly along with, so that we can have conversations with you, and ACP will be a part of that, but we'll keep talking about that ongoing. Great.
All right, terrific. Good meeting. If there's nothing for the good of the agenda or the order, I guess we're adjourned.
Thanks, Mac.
See you. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Yep.
Thank you to everyone who's here in the room with us. I really appreciate you coming, both of you.